So I would like to thank Neom and Dr. Krishna Prasad Kudlu for inviting me for this conference. So I'm going to talk about accidental Argentinian flag sign. So we all know that macular intervention cataracts, they are swollen, congested, there is hydration of the lens matter, and there is an increase in intraocular pressure. Argentinian flag sign was a term coined by Daniel Perron. Basically, it's a peripheral split in the anterior capsule after the first puncture in the stained anterior capsule with trypan blue. So once it is ruptured, it resembles the Argentinian flag, and that's why it's called as the Argentinian flag sign. And why it occurs? As I already mentioned, there's hydration of the lens fibers. These intervention cataracts have increased intraocular pressure. The capsule is more stretched, it is more convex, and this leads to the peripheral split or the radial tear of the anterior lens capsule. Just a small video. This is my learning stage. This is 20 years back when I was doing my phaco. So this is macular intervention cataract. This is anterior capsule is stained with trypan blue. So uniform staining of the capsule is very important. A high density cohesive viscoelastic substance is injected into the anterior chamber, and I made the first puncture, and you can see that it has extended. So nothing to worry. If you have this type of accidental Argentinian flag sign, what you have to do is you have to convert the sharp horizontal edges into the circular ones. So give a nick with the help of a micro vanas or a micro vana scissor, or then with the help of a micro axis forceps, convert this sharp horizontal edge into the circular ones, so that you can get a good coverage on the optic of the IOL once you have injected the IOL and the extension is avoided. Usually these cataracts are soft and they are fluffy. So whenever you're doing the phacoemulsification, make sure that you do a slow motion phaco when you have the Argentinian flag sign, so that the extension of the capsule into the posterior capsule is avoided. Try to make sure that the irrigation port stays away from the cut end as much as possible. Maintain the anterior chamber throughout, and with a slow motion phacoemulsification and a controlled guidance, you can emulsify all the cataract and aspirate it. You can see in this case, even when you're doing a cortical wash with the help of a bimanual, always make sure that the irrigating port doesn't hit the irrigation doesn't hit at the extended end of the posterior capsule. Now this is an aqueous lens which I was injecting that time, and this lens is very thin and fragile. You just have to tap it, and it goes into the capsular bag, and you make sure that the optic is nicely covered. The anterior lens capsule is nicely covering the optic. So this is the way you are going to handle if you have an accidental Argentinian flag sign. But how are we going to avoid this? So what is listed in the literature is basically mini rexes, snail pattern rexes, heart-shaped rexes, and puncho rexes, which is invented by our own ophthalmologist from India called Dr. Mohan Rajan. But what I recommend is this. This is a high resolution video, and now after my learning curve is over, at the current stage, what I'm practicing is this. So you can see this is an intermission cataract. The anterior capsule is stained with trypan blue. It's a very convex anterior capsule. A cohesive viscoelastic is injected, and you can see it's a 2cc syringe mounted on a 24 gauge needle. I just enter the center of the anterior capsule and aspirate it, and you can see the sudden decompression of the anterior capsule, the intraventricular pressure, and the whole convex material has become a bit concave. So once this is done, again reform the anterior chamber, and now with the help of a capsulotomy needle or a micro rexis forceps, you can do a control capsular rexis. So start with the mini rexis first, start with the small rexis, and then once you reach the starting point, go behind the starting point and convert this rexis into a snail pattern rexis or the onion ring pattern rexis. Always make sure that you remain within the mid periphery, because in the mid periphery there is more bulge. What you have aspirated is only the central part. So remain within the mid periphery. You will never have an extension, and because you have decompressed the lens, your control will be very much effective. So you can see this is rexis being performed in this case. The rexis was small, so after I emulsified the cataract and I injected the IOL, I felt that the rexis was decentered. So I given a small tangential nick with the help of a micro vanas, and with the help of a micro rexis forceps, you can convert this rexis to the desired size and shape. So this was a decentered rexis because I wanted a circular one. I can reshape this rexis. So if you have a small rexis, it is more controlled and you can reform it later on. Another way to one more video I'm showing of how to decompress this lens. You can see I'm piercing the anterior capsule, I've aspirated, and suddenly the whole capsule becomes concave. So I've tried this with the various 1 ml syringe, 2 ml syringe, and 5 ml syringe with the 26 gauge needle and the 24 gauge needle. So what I felt was the 24 gauge needle with the 2cc gives adequate volume vacuum to aspirate it. Again, when you are doing this, you have to be more comfortable in performing the rexis both with the right hand and the left hand as well, with the needle as well as the forceps. So you can see I started with the left hand. Now once I felt that this might get extended, so I took the right hand and started doing the rexis with the right hand. One more technique to decompress is the anterior YAG laser capsulotomy. You can see one shot of 1.2 millijoule of anterior YAG laser capsulotomy. One shot is given in the center of the anterior lens capsule, and the moment you hit, the whole liquefied cortex falls down like a waterfall. And you just do this in the OPD and then shift the patient to the OR. By the time the patient shifts to the operating table, the whole intraventricular pressure is reduced and the lens is decompressed, and then you can begin with your rexis. You can see the lateral view. One shot and you can see how the whole liquefied cortex falls down like a waterfall. So this is a very good effective technique, and we have already described it. So once the laser is done, you can see the stellate pattern, and this you can convert. You can do a good exercise with that. We have done a pre-ag OCT and the post-ag OCT. There is definitely an increase in the anterior chamber depth. This was published in the Asia Pacific Journal also, the role of posterior anterior capsulotomy in mature intumescent cataracts. It was also featured in the AO Academic Express in the Asia Pacific region. This study was also avoided the best physical posture in All India Ophthalmic Conference. Basically, it was decompressing mature intumescent cataracts to evaluate the intraoperative complications during phaco of intumescent cataract using different lens decompression technique, where we compared the YAG laser and the needle aspiration, and we presented this. So the top tip to avoid accidental urgent flag sign is basically interintegral decompression, and interintegral decompression. You can use one of the technique, which can be an ND-YAG laser anti-capsulotomy, or you can do a slow and guarded decompression with the help of a 24 gauge needle mounted on a 2cc syringe. Once you do this, I am sure you will get zero incidence of Argentinian flag sign, and this is what I wanted to showcase. Thank you.